All right, let's get into another interesting discussion now. This next discussion is really going to interest you because a lot of us Nigerians and even Africans, I must say, but maybe specifically especially Nigerians are guilty of this. But the quality of English language usage in Nigeria, both spoken and written, is fast deteriorating, and this is evident in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination and the NECO result, in which the failure rate in English and literature has been on the rise.
Yes, indeed. Now, the level to which the use of the English language has fallen has become a source of concern to many. The poor performance in the subject follows many secondary school students to universities, which eventually produces graduates who can neither speak nor write good English. And to make matters worse, most tutors of the English language in Nigeria do not even have a good command of the language. And then you have something called the Nigerian English, which is a totally different kettle of fish. Many say the decline in the standard of English language usage is a reflection of Nigeria's failing education system.
Okay, now we have joining us in the studio a writer, an author, and retired UN diplomat, Segun Omotayo, joining us right now. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. The name is Omolayo.
Omolayo. Sorry, Omolayo. Okay. There is this phrase we use often that English is not our native language, and people tend to use it as an umbrella to get away with a lot of things. How false is that when it comes to speaking the right English?
Yes, it's not a native language, but you got to learn the rules and know how to apply the rules. Once you do that, then you're okay, and keep retooling and retooling all the time. Because even for the native speakers, whom I've been privileged to work with, Australia, people from England, people from America, people from Canada, they also make some of the mistakes we make.
Absolutely.
They make them because they don't know the rules. You still have to know the rules. You may speak it very well because you're born into it, but writing it, you've got to master certain things. So
why do you even need to speak English correctly? I mean, some people would say, like we say in this part, who English help? Another level of degeneracy that the use of the English language has gotten to. And I'm thinking, more now, you have Pidgin English actually taking over. You have Pidgin English radio stations, TV stations, and all of that coming up. How much damage is that doing, really?
No, a lot of damage, because if you're a boss in the office, we're now in a situation where someone who comes with a master's degree cannot write a one-page memo. And if you're in that situation, it's a very difficult one indeed, because you correct such persons, they're not happy about it. Unnecessary friction, conflict arises between a boss and a subordinate who feels, oh, he knows it all. After all, I studied English. After all, I have a master's degree in this language. And who are you? Maybe you studied agriculture and you are his boss, and you are saying this is not rightly put. So we experience this, and it's a lot of problems.
Who needs to speak really good English?
Everybody needs to speak good English, because it's our language. It's the language we use. It's not our native language, but it's the language we use officially for commerce, and it is a global language. Somebody says, or not somebody, some authorities said, you cannot not communicate. You cannot not communicate. In whatever you say or do not say, you are communicating. So if you're communicating in all situations, you better communicate correctly, because communicating means sharing meaning. If I don't share meaning with you, there is no way I can get you do what I want you to do.
All right. Now, a lot of people have talked about the evolution of spoken language, especially English. The American style of speaking has really introduced a lot of trendy things that are not originally in the dictionary, or maybe are not even English words.
Yeah,
but
words like bootylicious.
Okay, words like swag. They've turned them to be words that qualify a certain thing.
Mainstream.
So, but how much of, because those are just trendy things, but how much damage is that causing, or how much of waking up should we do to the fact that trends are really changing.
You see, a lot of damage has been done there, but then you cannot stop this evolution, you cannot stop this development. You only need to be careful to know whom you're communicating with. You cannot be writing an official memo and be using swag and stuff like that. So you just must be careful about that and be very cognizant of the various provinces of the English language. The American province is different from the UK province, the
different
Nigerian
from
province,
Australia.
from Australia and the like. So you must be very, very sure of whom you are communicating with and adopt the correct usage.
But who really decides what is good or bad English? Is it the one who makes the speech, or the listener who feels, I'm not getting this communication correctly? Or is it both?
Yes, it's both. The listener, everybody involved in it, can decide what is right and what is not right. And there are general rules.
Okay.
Even when we talk of provincialities, there are general rules.
Talk to us about some of these rules.
For instance, take subject-verb agreement. People say, you will be embarrassed to hear some governors say, people says. You know, these are general rules and they don't change forever. These are the very conservative aspects of the language, which will not change for a long time to come. Because you encounter people who will tell you, that is my style. That is my style. Some will even tell you
that very often.
Some will even tell you it is a house style.
House style.
Yes.
Especially in the media.
In the media, yes, there are house styles, there are corporate styles, there are personal styles. But you must know that your style is your own way of manipulating the rules.
Okay.
You understand? No matter how great you are in your styling, you cannot say people says.
But what do you think? What do you think has really happened to us? I mean, when you listen to people like the pre-independence people, like Tafawa Balewa, the Ziks of this world, the Awolowos, the Ozumbambadiwes.
Yes.
I remember as a child, I would hear a chord concordial. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that means, but that really stood out for me. When you listen to those people speak in their time, it's totally different from you know, what obtains today. What exactly went wrong?
Yes, I'm happy you recognize this, because each time I get my hand on whatever Awolowo wrote, I just keep clapping. I keep smiling. It makes me happy and keeps me wondering, wow, at that time people wrote like this. It's just because they went through the right education in that language, and they also tutored themselves to make sure they do it right. That's what happened to them. But now you mentioned something in your intro.
Yes.
Even those who teach the language to students in the university now, do they know some of these things we're talking about? Are they very thorough themselves?
That's the point.
I am not too sure.
Can you give what you don't
have?
Why
you take it, a typical university thesis, I've edited several PhD theses, master's dissertations, project papers. I keep doing that for university lecturers, seminar papers, conference papers, and all that. When you take some of the papers the students write and they get by with, you wonder whether the lecturers care at all, whether these people write well or not. It's just like we say in Yoruba, idea loju. You know, it's the idea that matters. Once you just get the concept, he has mentioned separation of powers, and you let him go.
It doesn't matter how it's put across.
The construction doesn't seem to concern anybody anymore. And
I'd like us to be really practical.
Let's get into your book now.
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned redundance. You talked
Redundancy.
about redundancy. Exactly.
Yeah.
You talked about verbosity. You talked about circumlocution. You talked about tautology, and all of those. What are some of the very
common mistakes,
common ones, practical ones that we can point to?
Very interesting. In that book, I describe redundancy as perhaps the greatest problem all of us writers face. The reason is the sources are so many. We have about 10 there, you can still keep counting. So many sources, tautology, verbosity, circumlocution, bombast, and all of these things. Take an example of bombast. Somebody said, the NUJ chairman appealed to the deputy governor to use her centripetal and centrifugal powers to assist the union. That fellow is not making sense. But of course, this was read in the news on 2 stations, radio and television station.
Wow.
So that's a big example. That's an example of somebody who writes to impress. How can centrifugal powers and centripetal powers work together? One is pulling apart,
and the other is pulling
together. These are people who write to impress. For God's sake, don't write to impress at all. Write to communicate, which I said,
effective communication.
Share meaning, that's all. You have to do apart from that. And then take circumlocution, for instance, that is going about things indirectly. When you are saying government is doing well in terms of agriculture, medicine, health, this and that, that phrase in terms of is not required. Why can't you just say government is doing well in agriculture, in education, in health, and the rest? So prepositional phrases of the type I just mentioned in terms of brings about circumlocution that is going round and round about what you want to say. A lot of people will say in the course of the lecture, the professor said this and that. In the course of, those are 4 words. You can say, you can use 1 word for it. In the lecture. The professor said this and that. During the meeting, not in the course of the meeting. Of course, it is correct.
And in news script writing, there's the tendency to make that mistake a lot.
Exactly.
A lot.
Exactly. But, you know, brevity is of the essence in everything we do now.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple and short.
And I recall during JAM examinations, you come across shooting case.
That's a typical example.
Many people just
that is double meaning and tautology. Exactly. Double meaning and tautology.
And you mentioned in your book too this interesting one. There were claims and counterclaims about the death of an inmate who died in prison.
The death is not necessary here. Somebody died, he's dead. So
repetition.
A repetition,
Okay, so now
there is this under verbosity. You have some collection of examples here. Oh, sorry, circumlocution, I guess. I agree with the idea. Instead of I agree, and then you have the during the time that. Instead of when, and then in view of the fact that, instead of because.
You're just saying because.
Exactly.
And you're using 5 words to say that. So.
And then we also have within the framework of. You can just say in.
That's
and then
all.
within the context of, which could be regarding,
concerning.
There's this other one that Nigerians say, like politicians, students, everybody. He cannot be able. He cannot be able to do. He cannot be able to do in 7 years what he could not do in 30 years. It's either he cannot,
or he's not able, or he's unable.
So he cannot be able. It's just that.
No.
But in all of this, now that you went through the process of putting all of this together in the book. How are people accepting this now? Because one thing there is, it's on record that so many people, especially young people, don't read as much as they used to do 2, 3, 4 decades ago. So how are people accepting this?
You said the response has been phenomenal. It's been terrific. In Ekiti State, where I am based, the head of service there bought 160 copies for his administrators. And he made me to conduct a workshop for the admin officers from levels 8 to 17. Some other agencies of government, some bought 50 copies, 30 copies for their administrators because they realize all they do is writing. It's either they are writing correspondences or they are writing proposals, they are writing reports and stuff like that. That's what they do. They realize that. It's just like the university people where you have lecturers, students, and admin people. All they do is write. The lecturer is either writing books, seminar papers, this and that, and the students are always writing projects and thesis, dissertations, and all of that. So just like the admin people are also writing a lot of things in their office. So that's one sector. A school proprietor called me because I had a show on Channel's television.
On the television station.
After the show, he called me. He said he had bought 10 copies of the book. What are you doing with 10 copies? He said he runs a school. What level of school are you running? He said a primary school. A primary school? He said yes. He said he was going to visit me, and he visited me in Ado-Ekiti. The guy is based in Lagos here. So he took me to his school. There was just in primary 4. So why are you buying this book for your pupils? He said, I want to catch them young. Do you think primary school pupils are going to be able to use this? He said, somehow they must be able to use it. Okay, I advised him, get your English language teacher to go through the book and see what he can take here and there for them. He frowned, he's still not too, he's still, okay, I said, don't worry. I am going to read the book again myself and then make some adaptation. That has led me to writing a book for pupils now, which I'm going to call Pop Errors in English, Pupils Beware.
Okay.
And I've outlined the chapters. I'm going to do it in 5 chapters.
That's interesting.
Might be about 150. About
This
150
one, of
pages.
course, is called Pop
Wonderful.
Errors
Pop
in
errors,
English.
Pop errors in
In English.
Writers beware, yes.
Pop, of course, would mean popular errors.
Popular.
Yes. Popular
That's
errors.
what the young ones use, pop music, pop this, pop that, it means popular. Yeah.
It's interesting. How foundational, really, is it for English, the English language to be well taught? I recall in primary school, we used to have English comprehension. We had oral English and,
Essays.
you know, and all of that. I wonder if they still do that anymore.
You see, the
now,
foundation is
because
very,
that is
the foundation is very important. I made a remark somewhere in one of the chapters where I dealt with parts of speech. Parts of speech. Another phrase for it is word categories.
Yeah.
Now, parts of speech is the very first topic when teaching the English language grammar. It's the very first topic because when the teacher has finished with forming words, B-O-O-K, book, C-A-T, cat, the next thing is to be able to string words together. And how do you string words together correctly if you do not know what part each word belongs to? Every word in the English language belongs to a category.
Yeah.
Either a noun, a pronoun, an adjective, an adverb, preposition, interjection, and the rest. If you do not know this, you cannot write very well. That is why the foundation is very important, because you are taught this in primary 3. If you master it and you never forget, you keep using it, it's going to put you in good stead.
All right, now, within the context of Nigeria, or putting Nigeria on the platform,
Right.
in the Southwest, it's seen as high level of a relatively high level of education in this. Are you making any effort to, you know, get into the hinterlands in the northern part where we still have a lot of challenges? with
Very
people?
interesting. I got calls from Zamfara.
Okay.
I got calls from Abuja. And I've sent copies to these places, people who want the book badly. In fact, someone is proposing to me that he wants to sell the book in Abuja. So I think he's finding focus in such places.
Give us other examples, too, of some expressions that, you know, a lot of people think is correct, but not necessarily. As a matter of fact, some have called it Nigerian English. Expressions like, he's not on seat. How correct is that?
It's not on seat.
Yes.
Well, it looks correct to me.
Okay.
It's telling you it's not in the office. That's all. It's not.
Oh, because
it's not
I recall
available. I think it's correct.
GS001 were taught, no, that's not correct. You say, I'm afraid he's not available, or I'm sorry, that person is not available, instead of, or when would Nigerians say, he put her in a family way? You know,
I guess that's veering into idioms and all of that now.
Yes, in the family way might be an idiom. I got to check that. It could just be an English idiom. Yeah.
All right. So for a country like Nigeria, 521 languages.
Yes.
9 already extinct. How important is it for us to have a common language like the English language, which we call a lingua franca, in terms of you know, communicating with one another.
It's very important. It helps us to communicate and do our job. And apart from that, it helps us to communicate with the rest of the world. It's a global language. The Chinese are struggling to learn English. The French, everybody in the world is struggling to learn English. So we must also have some mastery of it to be able to relate with this.
But my point is, should it be at the expense of our own indigenous
No, it
languages?
should not be at the expense of it. I mean, there are teachers. The curriculum should be designed in such a way that will give provision for the teaching of our native languages. Native languages are very, 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 very important because I'm a Yoruba person, for instance, and I rate the Yoruba language as very superior. Is superior, no, very superior will not be even good English. Because that intensifies.
Already.
When something is superior, it's already superior. I don't need that very there. Now, I rate the Yoruba language as superior to many, many languages of the world because I find out certain things in relating to other people from other parts of the world. You know, when I am decoding a particular matter, I look for a suitable Yoruba proverb. When I get one and I try to explain to people, it's very difficult for them to know where I'm coming from. And when I try to write this in English, maybe I'm doing my analysis. And a Yoruba proverb has decoded that analysis out. I should tackle the analysis for me. It goes so smoothly. In other words, there's so many things in that language that are not available in other languages that even the English language cannot cope with. Why must we neglect such a language? We should not do it.
Or any of our other.
Any of the other, I'm sure there are other languages.
I just wish we have other times to dwell on these issues again, to talk about how these relate to issues of phonetics and how they relate to our mother tongue, and also even comparison.
Where phonetics is important is that how you pronounce something can make you make mistakes when you write. Look at access and assess. A lot of people mix them. They want to say access, they write assess.
All right.
You know, it's as a result of bad pronunciation. That is where malapropism derives from. Some of the sources of malapropism. Malapropism is a chapter in the book.
Well, a lot of people talk about compare Nigeria with Ghana, and they say Ghanaians speak better English naturally than Nigerians.
I don't agree with them. In fact, to me, Ghanaians have spoiled our English.
Whoa.
That time they invaded Nigeria. That's everybody now says hair. That is H-E-R. That's the way the Ghanaian speaks English. I work with some of them. I don't agree with them at all. You now hear work.
Exactly.
That is work. Yeah? Is that correct? You are broadcasters like work. I don't listen to the native speakers. Some of the things they say in Ghana are not said by the native speakers themselves. And those are the best teachers for anybody anyway.
All right. Thank you very much, Segun Omolayo, former UN diplomat, broadcaster, author, writer. There's so many things to qualify you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
for Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And waking us up to you know, just
speaking
speak
well.
Good English.
We hope to have you again some other time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's take a quick short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the abuse of codeine among the youth.